MoneyButton is unusual among Bitcoin SV startups in being based in Silicon Valley, although it's more typical in having a tiny staff compared to its influence and having giant ambitions for itself and for Bitcoin. Its founder is Ryan X. Charles. Our conversation was recorded at the recent CoinGeek conference in Toronto, where he was announcing the launch of Paymail. We talked about everything from how Paymail works to the meaning of money and the future of life as we know it. So please enjoy Ryan's always interesting ideas.
You're listening to CoinGeek Conversations with Charles Miller.
So Ryan, thank you very much for doing another CoinGeek conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is MoneyButton doing new that you're talking about at the moment?
So at this conference, we announced a new protocol for identity that we created called Paymail. Paymail is basically the same thing as email, but it also supports Bitcoin. And we're doing this for a lot of reasons. I mean, first of all, we needed an identity system inside MoneyButton somehow, because when you do things like participate in a contract with other people, you need to know who you're dealing with and be able to do things like sign a contract where someone's name is on there. And it needs to solve a bunch of different problems. It needs to be user-friendly, something people are familiar with and understand, and also have certain technical properties that allow us to solve every technical problem we have to solve to be able to actually make it work for all these things. And email fits the bill. It gives you a human-readable name that you understand. It's also completely backwards compatible with existing email, which makes it possible for companies like Google or any other large company to add support for this if they want to in a fully backwards compatible way.
So just explain to me as the user what I will be able to do and what it'll be like.
Sure. So what you'll do as a user is, first of all, let's assume we're in the small ecosystem that we're in right now. Basically, you'll sign up at MoneyButton. You have charles@moneybutton.com, and your friend uses Handcash, and your friend's name is Alice. So what you do is you send a payment to alice@handcash.io. Alice can send you a payment by typing in charles@moneybutton.com. So instead of having to worry about copying and pasting Bitcoin addresses and things like that, you just have someone's Paymail.
And then how do I say how much I want to send?
The same as usual. You type it in. What we can do is we make the underlying protocol actually supports, it's hard to explain how expansive it is, but it allows you to do things like you can create an invoice. So if you are expecting a certain amount of money from Alice, because Alice is a contractor working for you, you create an invoice. Alice can query and see the invoice and make a payment to you. And she knows it's you because it's signed by charles@moneybutton.com. So she knows it's the contract that you created. So Alice sees the invoice. Do I agree to this? Yes. Swipe MoneyButton. End. That's all it is. So it's about making everything user-friendly. It's about doing all these advanced things we talk about that we can do with Bitcoin, but doing it in a way where we eliminate every single one of these barriers to the user experience so that the user just sees and understands what's going on with none of these weird technical things like copying and pasting a Bitcoin address or anything like that.
Because at the moment when I use MoneyButton, I'm using it to pay a company or something, and I go on the website and I don't really know, I don't have to direct my payment because I'm already at the place where the payment will automatically arrive at the right place.
Yes, that's true. But MoneyButton has also it's also a wallet, so you can go to like moneybutton.com and just type in alice@handcash.io and swipe MoneyButton. We have a normal wallet built in, but what you can also do is the reason why it's embeddable into other websites. This allows other people, other businesses, other developers to actually create advanced applications that take advantage of these features. Because when you know how powerful this all is, we're not going to be able to build every single app ourselves. We're not going to build a DRM app and a newspaper and a payroll system and all these things. But they will use all the same underlying protocols and infrastructure. So we're enabling all those things with MoneyButton. So the end user won't notice any of these things. You're going to go to moneybutton.com, and you want to send your friend, you type in your friend's name. But what we've done under the hood is design all the protocols and write the software that makes all of these new things possible for anyone by embedding MoneyButton into their existing application or by building a new one around MoneyButton.
So an individual user can buy something from PayPal, for instance, that allows them to receive PayPal payments. It's a sort of similar facility to that?
It is like that, except far more powerful. So it is, and from a user-friendly sense, and you can do things like, because PayPal has very good support for email. They're really based on email early on. It was originally all about basically sending money to an email address. This is like that, except that we've solved every single technical problem to be able to do things like actually have real legal contracts that you sign with a signature that is now stored on the blockchain, and you have a permanent immutable record of what was signed, encrypted, so that only the relevant parties can see it. But if you need to take this to a court later on because there's a disagreement about something, all that's there. So it is like PayPal at a surface level, but under the hood what it is a protocol that allows us to build the future. It's the future of the way that people will engage in the economy. I mean, it's the future of the way that you're going to actually sign contracts. Instead of literally giving you a piece of paper to sign a contract, what I do is I type in your Paymail. I type in charles@moneybutton.com, and I construct a contract, and I add you to it, and now we can sign it. And we can do everything. We can make the terms of the contract even included in all the system. So if you're hiring me to build a piece of software for you or something like that, you create the contract, you and I both sign it, the terms of the contract are then executed automatically. So I can write software, give it to you, I receive the money that I expect. I mean, these are the types of things we can do. It's like, it's a whole other league from PayPal. I mean, it's the way the internet really should have been originally, except that the internet didn't have money. So because we can do these things with Bitcoin, that's what we're doing. So the user should think, this is like PayPal, except that there's this cool app that I can use that PayPal doesn't support. So the user will have no idea what's going on under the hood, but it's just going to be like all these new apps that they use MoneyButton, but they don't use PayPal, because what the people who make the app understand is, you solved that problem. Like, now I can do all these things for real. I can really create real legal contracts that with my friends or whoever that are actually enforced automatically. We can use the law because you can actually have real legal contracts, right? So, and then it makes that a reality at a protocol level. So there's still more work to do to flesh it out, but the protocol and our implementation are finished.
But from the security point of view, with your bank account, you don't need to worry about giving out your bank account number and the sort code and stuff, because it doesn't really matter if people put stuff into your bank account or send stuff to you. So that would be like with your...
It's the same way.
With your address.
This is very secure.
The security comes in the other direction when I, as the user, decide whether to send money or to...
Well, but you make that decision when you sign a contract. So if you can tell that certain terms are being enforced, those things happen automatically. This doesn't mean that the payments are, like if you don't like that type of, you don't have to agree to anything that is going to suck money out of your account, right? But people often want stuff like that. People often want to be able to subscribe to Netflix and to not have to pay them every single month by hand. Sometimes you actually do want to come up with an agreement where things actually do happen automatically. So it's not about making everything happen without you having to do anything. It's about allowing all of those options. And at the end of the day, you have the power to pick what's right for you. We're bringing all of these technologies together so that you can do whatever's right for you. So it's so general that it's hard to explain, but you can look at an individual application and say, so our thing solves that, and that, and that, and that.
Because I remember at the last conference, you were talking about we shouldn't have called it MoneyButton because it's a lot more than just money.
Yeah. Well, I like the name MoneyButton because what I realized is it is about more than just money. But at the same time, for the name and for things like the basic features, the end user should know that it's about sending money. That's what it really is. And that's why they're going to sign up. This is just how I send money. So I'm going to use MoneyButton. That's what it's all about. So under the hood, though, we're empowering businesses and professionals to actually create these advanced things that their customer isn't going to care or know about the details, right? They just think MoneyButton is for where I send money. And they're just using it to swipe MoneyButton to send money to the services and the applications that they're using. So, yeah.
Now, MoneyButton is a prominent feature of the BSV ecosystem. I mean, a very prominent feature.
Yes.
I imagined that you would be running a company with 50 people, tens of millions of dollars invested, expensive offices in Silicon Valley, but I've just discovered that it's not really like that.
No.
What is it
like?
Yes,
well, first of all, on your first point, we are high profile, and I'm going to back up and explain a bit why that is. We're high profile because we're very on point about everything that we're doing. So people notice and look up to us because What we're doing is basically leveraging Bitcoin. When you think about everything that we're actually doing, we're just using Bitcoin. Why are we able to move so quickly with such a small number of people? Because we understand what Bitcoin offers us.
Well, tell me about that number of people.
The number of people in the company, we're 3 people. So that is our company is only 3 people. Now I know people think that I look at these other companies that have like 15 people or something and that have nothing. I mean, we're only 3 people, but we're 3 very productive people who are doing everything right.
And tell me where you are.
Well, we're distributed. So I'm located in San Francisco, California, and the other team members, Miguel and Oihei, are based in Argentina.
And how do you stay in touch?
Well, we use mostly things like Slack and Google Hangouts, and we meet in person often. We're meeting here at this conference and things like that. Mostly I would say Slack and also GitHub. So we use modern tooling to like stay in touch and all that stuff. And
is it a feature of a Bitcoin platform business that you are able to do that on such few staff, or is it just could anybody be as efficient as that with an internet business?
It is 100% because of Bitcoin.
How does that make it possible?
Well, I mean, you have to understand how to do these things, but the reason why it's possible is Bitcoin makes businesses better. Okay, I mean, it just provides all of the underlying infrastructure that we need to be able to do all of these advanced things. So, what we're doing is MoneyButton is just a Bitcoin wallet. I mean, all it is a Bitcoin wallet that you can plug in anywhere, and it has an API. The magic is Bitcoin. That's what's actually doing all these things. What we're doing, we make a new protocol. Well, the real underlying protocol is literally just Bitcoin. I mean, that's how we're able to do all this. That's not an exaggeration. Bitcoin provides all of the fundamental protocol features to enable all of these things. So with fewer people and less money, we can go further. So why don't we go off and raise $50 million or something like that? Well, we don't need $50 million to do these things, okay? What we'll do is we grow as much as we can lean, and guess what happens next year, 2 years, when we want to or need to raise money, we'll get vastly, vastly better terms. All of these other companies and terrible, terrible projects that blew investors' money, in some cases like EOS, we haven't seen it die yet, but I'm not optimistic about the future of EOS. Many of these projects will vanish and lose hundreds of millions and in some cases billions of dollars. And well, I'm not going to do that. Okay, if we don't need $1 billion, we don't need to raise $1 billion. Okay, we'll get there when we get there. This is about doing it for real. This is about building a real company. We just turned on our first revenue source today. Okay, because we're living so lean. All we need to do is survive and grow and build on Bitcoin and make this work. And we're going to be the largest company you can imagine sometime in the future. So that's the plan.
What's your new revenue source?
So we're actually selling Paymails. What that means is when you sign up for MoneyButton, you get a free Paymail that's actually a number. So whatever your user number is, that's free. But no one wants to use a number. You want to use a name. The thing is, we can't give out names for free, or we're going to have the same problem that every other free naming service has, which is that bots use it and register every good name and create tons of fake accounts and do malicious things. So we prevent that from happening by charging a small fee. This is in many ways the very ethos of Bitcoin is this. You go back to why Craig created this originally. His original motivation was, I want to make a better internet that is better because it has money built in, therefore allowing economic incentives wherever needed. Names are one of those things. Names can't be free. You need a global name. It's unique. Like it or not, it has value. It has some amount of value. And people need to be able to price different names differently. So what we do is, you can sign up. We don't know how to value the names though. Okay, like any other market, we just sell them for $1. What you can do is, we've actually built in a market. You actually just put it on sale and you can sell the name to somebody else for any amount of money. Okay, and we take 30%. So our revenue is both actually selling the names and taking revenue from a percentage of it. Okay.
Right. So would it be a good idea for me to go in to MoneyButton now and buy up, NBC,
yes.
BBC?
Because you go in. Well, okay. Well, NBC, those are kind of a special case. Like I wouldn't like basically if you actually plan to sell it to NBC, then that's the type of thing where you're actually that's their trademark. So I wouldn't encourage you to do that because basically NBC is going to be kind of angry with you and maybe they'll sue you if this ever became popular. What I would recommend is you go in there and you register other names that are valuable. So you go in there and register your name. You might go in there and register other cool names that aren't trademarks. They're just cool names.
Or just first names.
Or first names, people's first names, sure, things like that. Things that aren't trademarked, okay? So once you do that, what you can then do is you can actually have a little business. If you convince someone to go buy that name, think about how everyone wins. You just got the right person to have the right name. Yes, they had to pay money for it, but the reason why they had to pay money was because some random bot didn't just take it away and keep it, okay? So although they have to pay money for it, Bob at MoneyButton.com can acquire Bob at MoneyButton.com for whatever the price is and actually have their name, right? And now there can only be one Bob though, so if that's a really valuable name, then it might be really expensive.
You've got Ryan.
I have Ryan at MoneyButton.com, and I also own X at MoneyButton.com, and I'm selling X, my middle initial is X.
Yeah.
So I'm selling X at MoneyButton.com for $1 million, and my plan is, it's a half joke, but my plan is to sell it to Elon Musk or something like that, because Elon owned X.com, okay? I'm not sure who currently owns it, but there would be a reason for someone like that, anyway. But X is just a letter. This can't be a trademark thing, it's just the letter X, okay? And it is my middle initial. So I'm selling my middle initial to whoever wants X at MoneyButton.com for $1 million. Now, I don't think I want to say, fingers crossed, maybe somebody will actually pay me $1 million for that name. I'd be pretty surprised, but I'm really using that as an example.
You'd be open to reasonable offers, I suppose.
Yeah, sure, I'd be open to reasonable offers. But what I'm really doing is using that one as just an example of sell it for what it's worth. If you can genuinely do a business this way, but you do have to make sure that you price it in a way that someone's actually going to pay for it. So it's probably not going to be $1 million, but maybe you can sell it for $10 instead of $1.
Now, with your 3 people in the company,
yes.
Do you do coding yourself?
So, only a little bit. So, our team is basically, Mige is an engineer, Oihei is the user experience person who basically designs everything. And I'm the other guy that does everything else. I do a little bit of programming. I have an engineering background and a long other background in technical things. So I do a little bit of programming, but by and large I make sure everything else that isn't either user experience or programming happens.
And is there a lot of work to be done on the sort of legal and regulatory side?
Well, we made some really smart moves early on, because what we want to do from the perspective of our company is we really don't want to be a bank. There are a lot of reasons why we don't want to hold other people's money. It's just not our business. That's it. Being a bank is its own thing. It's its own specialty. What we want to do is write the software that empowers people to do all these fancy things. Okay, so we want to make a product. And so by design, MoneyButton is actually non-custodial. Our company doesn't hold the money. The users hold the money. They're sending money peer-to-peer. So from a regulatory perspective, what that means is we're not a bank. We're not a money transmitter. We're not a security. We're nothing like that. So we're really just a software company that writes a piece of software that our users use to manage their own funds.
Right, so you've shuffled off a lot of responsibilities by taking that approach.
And it's just about focusing on what we're good at. There are people that have to do those things. There will be money transmitters and banks and all that type of thing that use all this technology, and they can use MoneyButton. So you can make a money transmitter that uses MoneyButton if you want to. And we're writing the software that it makes that possible.
How do you feel the sort of BSV ecosystem as a whole, how healthy is it at the moment, do you think? How optimistic?
I would say it is ridiculously healthy, because people are so vastly underestimating BSV right now, it's absurd. We're like the only ecosystem that's building really functional apps right now. The joke is, all these other cryptocurrencies, I was joking in my presentation earlier that I can't help but insult them, because, and I mean this, I think this will become clear to people in a couple years. The reality is it's mostly scams, and there's nothing good about that. That is anti-health. It's not like they're healthy and we have to be more healthy. It's like they're a disease, and we got to get away from the disease and just create real businesses and focus and create real products, real services that create value for people. We're like the only ones doing this. All these other things have some really, really scammy connections. I mean, even many of the real legitimate businesses are like one hop away from the scammers because their customers are scammers. I'm not saying this to attack the industry, but that's most cryptocurrencies are like that. They're not even in the same league. What we're doing is we're creating all of these basic applications that are very small right now, but they're going to be the future. These are actually going to be the way that you sign contracts in the future, in reality. This isn't some fantasy thing. We're not doing ICOs and scamming people out of money. We're actually building the contract system of the future. Like, we're the only ones that are actually doing it. And you can look at all these little projects. They're really little, but they're little seedlings that are doing everything right. They're creating real products and real little businesses that earn little money. I mean, they're going to grow up 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and all of a sudden you're going to realize, oh, well, maybe we should be compliant with the law. Maybe we should be building real businesses. Because all these other people, the actual scammers, will actually end up going to prison, and the investors in these terrible projects that are going to go nowhere are just going to lose their money. So that's the reality. I mean, basically, we're radically more healthy than most people understand.
I mean, there are a number of small businesses in the BSV world. They're quite well known to each other. They come to conferences together, and the
Yes.
people know each other.
Yes.
Do you think that as time goes on and they hopefully get bigger and more successful, that feeling of camaraderie will evaporate, and suddenly they'll be suing each other and treading on each other's toes because they're in the same, they'll become more rivals than in league together against the rest of the world?
No, because basically people have this peculiar interpretation of competition. Competition is not about destroying your enemy. Competition is about creating value for your customers. The way to compete with another business is to do better than them. It's to create more value for your users, okay? The way you compete is I go to Alex of Handcash and say, ha ha ha, I have more users than you have, right? I'm not destroying Handcash. We're in like a game where we're having fun and we're creating real successful businesses. Competition doesn't mean destroying the other businesses. It just means creating a large successful business. The way we win is to grow faster than them, okay? And so I think the way this will play out is we'll continue to be friendly, because that doesn't mean that we share secrets. We'll end up doing things like agreements with each other. So if we, rather than just tell Alex something, I'll say, you're going to have to sign an NDA, right? I mean, we as necessary, we scale up the level of maturity as we grow, and that type of thing will happen. But I don't think we'll ever be bitter enemies. I mean, unless someone backstabs somebody, and things like that can happen. There can be other reasons why people become bitter enemies, but there's no reason to assume that it has to happen that way. Just create real businesses, and there's no problem. I mean, you don't have to attack each other.
I mean, it could be the other way it could go is that the big ones will eat up the small ones, buy them up, and
well, buying them up is good. That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, good for the small business to get bought up by a big company. I mean, that's also good. Like, sometimes you look at it from a holistic economic perspective. Sometimes the best thing for like everyone is actually that there's one company that does that stuff. I mean, you can look at various industries where they end up doing things where they're so neck and neck competition that it would actually be better that there was like one company, so that they didn't do things like hurt their own growth. Like if they're lowering their prices so low that they run out of money or something, like, there's no reason to act like that. A different way to look at it is there are sort of two ways to grow Bitcoin. First of all, we don't need to get any of Handcash's users, because the reality is there are 7 billion people out there that aren't using Bitcoin. Our new users come from the rest of the world, not from Handcash, okay? The other thing is, once we get to that level, you can actually still grow. There are no new people if we have 7 billion people using it, but you can still grow because you can do two things. You can increase the velocity of money. People are using it more. You can still grow. You can increase the velocity of money just in the human economy. Furthermore, you can have machines that do things. You can have machines that actually engage economically. You can have machines that you actually have a data center where there are actually machines inside competing with each other to write better software inside your data center to make it more competitive with the outside world. You can leverage this stuff inside existing corporations and infrastructure to do all these things. That's a better economy, and it's all a part of the Bitcoin economy, okay? So there's basically, why would you worry about eating some small company when the room for growth is like orders of magnitude. I mean, we're talking like millions of times. Okay, and I think that's even an understatement. If you really thought it through, the full potential here is very extraordinary. So there's just no reason why it has to go that way. That's really a cultural question. If people end up hating each other, then they hate each other. But there's no reason why we have to go that route. It can continue to be friendly competition indefinitely.
And are you one of the people who sees Bitcoin as becoming the central medium of exchange
in the world?
In the world.
So the problem with all of these other cryptocurrencies is, well, there's not even one problem. I mean, they're so far off the mark, they have no idea what they're even doing. I mean, there's only one way this is going to work. There's going to be one global money for everything. There's going to be one system where you and I engage with each other. The blockchain is neutral. Anyone can be a miner. It's just a protocol that everyone can use to engage economically with everyone else. That's all it is. It's a protocol. The protocol is fixed. The protocol was set in stone, as they say, InChain likes to use this expression, because that's what Satoshi said. The protocol is set in stone. It's decentralized, not because of everyone runs a node or something silly. It's decentralized because no one controls the protocol. It was established on day one. There's no one that controls it. There's no group that decides how it's going to be. Anyone can participate. It's an economy. It's decentralized in the same way that the real world economy is decentralized. If you want to go out there and you don't like that newspaper, you want to make your own new newspaper, you can do it and compete. It might be very hard, but you can, because there's that law, right? There's like, you exist in this economy with the law. You can do that. That is allowed. You can compete. Okay, so that's really what it is. It is a neutral global protocol, and everyone wins if we use the same one. I can't engage with you if you're on Ethereum.
But that's Bitcoin SV in competition or in relation to the other potential cryptocurrency. What about Bitcoin SV in relation to the existing financial system?
Yes, well, there are many. This is something that's a little bit longer term, but I mean, basically, what will happen is the best route for fiat currency in the near term is actually to create fiat tokens. And so we'll do this in a number of stages. We do things like with Tokenize, we have companies that will issue a fiat token. So it starts with a company. A company issues a fiat token in a particular location for whatever reasons. Comply with the law. Okay, you can do this in a completely legal way. Tokenize is very well designed. They were made very sure that all that stuff is possible. You can comply with Tokenized. You can make a legal fiat token anywhere. It does mean you actually have to comply, which means it's not just a matter of writing the code. You have to actually create a real business, get licenses as needed, follow all the regulations, sometimes hire people. It depends on what regulations you're following and all that type of thing. That's step number one, is companies. Step number two is governments, small governments. We actually get them to issue their own nation currency, small island nation somewhere, anything like that. They actually issue their real, nation state fiat currency on Bitcoin. So it's still their token. They have a central bank. They control the supply and the distribution and things like that. But under the hood, it's actually a token on Bitcoin. And the amounts of Bitcoin that people are sending are irrelevant compared to the amount of fiat that they're sending. So the whole minuscule 1 cent's worth of BSV to be able to manage these tokens. So it's going to be mostly fiat. But what happens as this grows is more and more countries do this. Eventually, long-term game here is things like the US, the United States, Federal Reserve. Eventually they realize, gosh, we could literally just save $7 trillion. I'm making up the number, but you get the big picture vision here. It's better if we just go on chain. And so then, I don't want to estimate a time because I haven't tried to give a realistic time for this, but at some point in the future, they just start using the blockchain. Because imagine how good it would be if the US Fed used the blockchain. They are audited, I should say. Anyone can check these things. It would be better for everyone. It's going to be cheaper for them. It's going to solve all of their accounting issues and all these crazy problems like that. They will put the US dollar on chain. It'll be a token on Tokenized. Can't guarantee Tokenized, but probably. I mean, if they continue to grow and all that type of, they did design it well, it could be tokenized in the future. So they put the US dollar becomes a token on Bitcoin SV. What then happens though is people around the world start to realize maybe we don't really need a central bank because we actually have this, by that point, extremely large, extremely distributed, and controlled by no one. It's just a protocol. It's a system that has a finite supply of money. It's like the most stable form of money you can possibly imagine by the time it gets to that point. So what'll happen is people will just start using it as money. It replaces fiat currency over the long run, because why would it's a better store of value. I can do everything with it. I mean, everything I can do with fiat, I can do with BSV. It doesn't need a central bank. Even the central bank, they're like, well, I got to admit, why are we doing all this stuff when we actually have a protocol that solves every problem? Even they eventually will just quit. They'll just start using Bitcoin.
But one thing I don't understand about that is, if I'm a small country and I put my fiat currency on the blockchain, like you're saying,
yes,
is its value tied to the value of BSV, or is it independent?
No, not necessarily. I mean, it's managed however they want to manage it. I mean, the central bank can control it which way. So in the history of money,
So the BSV blockchain could host any number of different currencies, all with changing independent values.
Yes. So to give you an example of that, imagine there's a nation state, an island in the Caribbean, that for whatever reason has a bunch of gold bugs that live there, and they want to create a gold-backed fiat currency. They can do that on Bitcoin.
But what makes it a fiat currency then?
Well, because it's issued by the government. I mean, if they're the ones issue, I mean, they used to be. We used to just call it like things like the dollar or the pound, right? I mean, the pound used to be literally silver, but that stuff it ended up becoming backed by.
So in that respect, it being on the blockchain is more of a sort of management tool, because the government can still choose to what we used to call print more money,
yes,
if it wanted to.
Well, what it means is that the central banks end up becoming held accountable to their actions, because everything is public on the blockchain.
It's transparent.
Anyone can audit it. It's transparent, but it is basically the accounting system. It's still centrally managed by the central bank. It's just that they're using Bitcoin as the accounting.
It's just a more efficient and transparent way of auditing, really.
Yes, and everything else, and money transfer and all those types of things as well. It's more efficient at all those things. You can send money. If you send money to different countries today, it's quite a mess right now. Like there isn't really within certain regions, like within Europe, it's good. Within the U.S., it's good. If you start doing weird things like U.S. to Argentina is not good. It's hard to send dollars to Argentina for all sorts of various reasons. So it's an issue. I mean, so we can do things like this better. You can just send the money to someone. It's digital cash. I mean, even when you put fiat currency, it's actually still I just give you a transaction. I want to send you $1. It's even easier. You can be located anywhere in the world, and I swipe MoneyButton and give you $1.
How long is it going to take to get to that kind of world?
So I'll say that early on in the history of Bitcoin, I gave some humorously short time estimates that were wildly wrong. So I said something like, by 2014, Bitcoin would be mainstream, and maybe you'd still be buying your coffee with Bitcoin, but we'd be using Bitcoin for everything. Now, that did not happen by 2014. So what I've learned is estimating times is really hard. I think we're still on the right track, although we went through this weird detour with all these other cryptocurrencies. But we're back on track now. We're making it happen. It's the real deal. But it didn't happen in 2014. So I think that I can't give you a clear estimate for that, but I would say something like, the way I would answer that is to look at the rate with which large changes of that sort can happen. So look at things like, you can have a period where things like a currency dies over some number of years. So things like the Weimar Republic in Germany and all those things. Like you look at how long, even Venezuela right now, the currency is just still dying. But it's been dying for like 5+ years. And it's still dying. But it will eventually completely die. And these things take decades, let's say roughly 10 years. That's for like one country in a bad situation. There's nothing really currently wrong that I'm aware of with the US Fed. It's not like they're dying. Some people think they are. I don't know.
Won't the transition happen because the Bitcoin world becomes better rather than the fiat world gets worse?
That's the way to do it. I mean, this isn't about, I think the people that think that the US dollar is going to just suddenly vanish because they mismanage it, and therefore Bitcoin, are thinking about it backwards. What we want to do is we're just going to make a better internet. We're going to make a system that anyone can use to engage economically with anybody else. That means money, it means any other type of asset, any type of contract. You can engage economically with anyone, anywhere. That's what this is about. And it has money built in, and the form of money is a strictly limited supply. It's sound money. You can build other things on top of it, you can do whatever you want to. The way to do it is just create value for people. Create real businesses that solve real problems for people. Eventually, it succeeds at such a massive scale, no one's going to care about these fiat currencies anymore, even the governments. It's not about they're going to mismanage it and kill themselves. It's like, even they are going to win. They're just going to opt in to start using some of this stuff, and the end game is that they could even know that that's the end game. So what? It doesn't mean they have to lose. They can transition over 100 years if necessary. So it's not about the US dollar dying, it's just about building a better internet.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Ryan.
No, thank you.
Thanks very much to Ryan X. Charles, and do try MoneyButton if you haven't already signed up. Thanks for listening. Till next week, goodbye.